There are things we spend a lifetime growing: a modest home, a patch of soft green lawn, a few peaceful minutes each morning. But all it takes is one wrong turn of a tire, or one woman who thinks she is the law, to tear it all to shreds without a second thought. I'm not someone who seeks out a fight. But when that Mercedes rolled over the very soil where I once planted grass in memory of my late father, I knew this wasn't just about a yard anymore. This was about dignity. My name is Ryan Anderson. I am 35 years old. Remote software engineer. I don't smoke. I don't drink hard liquor. I don't pick fights. I just wanted one thing in life: a decent, peaceful home and a patch of lawn big enough for me to care for with my own hands. After more than 10 years scraping every penny together, writing code day and night, I finally bought a corner house in a quiet neighborhood in northern Florida. Not a mansion, not a lakeside retreat, just a modest house, but it was mine. And out front, a patchy, sun-bleached lawn, waiting for me to bring it back to life. I started step by step, tilling the soil, planting new Bermuda grass, lining the walkway with solar lights and sowing native wildflowers, just like my dad taught me when I was a kid. Every shovel of dirt, every handful of seeds was a living memory. I missed him, and the way he used to say, "A man only finds peace when he can protect the land he stands on." The first few weeks were calm. The neighbors seemed kind. Sometimes, an old man walking his corgi would nod and say, "Nice lawn, kid. Looks like this place has got a soul again." I smiled, light as the morning breeze, until that one fateful morning. A.M. on a Saturday, I had just finished watering when I heard a knock at the door. A woman stood there, floral dress, perfectly styled hair, smiling lips, but cold eyes. "Good morning. I'm Martha Covington, president of the Pine Hill Meadows Homeowners Association, and also the realtor who's helped many families find their homes here for 17 years. One hand held a basket of muffins, the other a thick binder titled HOA Regulations. The way she invited me to next weekend's barbecue wasn't an invitation. It was a sugar-coated order. When I mentioned I had a work deadline, she narrowed her eyes. "Sure, of course. But I'm sure you'll prioritize the community. Around here, everyone does their part." After she left, I opened the rule book. 34 pages of bizarre guidelines, from a strict 12-inch maximum height for garden gnomes to mailbox shapes that must reflect the neighborhood's personality. I had a bad feeling, and I was right. Just a week later, while Martha was hosting some gathering at her house, I was working when I heard an engine rev. I looked out the window and saw her pristine white Mercedes plow straight across the corner of my lawn, taking the shortcut to exit the cul-de-sac, a deep, muddy trail ripping through the new grass I had just planted days before. I confronted her the next morning, polite, controlled. "Hi, Mrs. Martha. I think someone drove over my lawn yesterday. I just reseeded it and it's pretty badly damaged." She didn't even blink. "Oh, that might have been me. But it's just around the corner. Everyone takes that shortcut. The last owner didn't mind. That's just life on a corner lot. I wasn't looking to get used to being trampled. No patch of grass deserves that." That afternoon, Michael Braddock, the neighbor next door, a former Marine, came by to say hi. When I told him about Martha, his face darkened. "You've just stepped on the toes of the queen tyrant around here. Don't mess with her, unless you're ready to fight." Michael told me stories about Martha's tactics, using HOA, rules to intimidate, fine, and force out anyone who didn't toe the line. His ex-wife had been one of them. Their marriage broke apart under the pressure of the HOA. That night, I installed surveillance cameras all around the front yard. Video, audio, every angle covered. I thought to myself, if this is a war, I won't be the one coming in empty-handed. 3 days. That's how long it took before I caught her on camera again. Martha Covington, HOA president, real estate agent, unofficial queen of Pine Hill Meadows. This time, she wasn't alone. My cameras, 4 of them with audio and night vision, picked up her pristine white Mercedes cutting across my lawn again. And again. 8 separate times over the next 3 weeks. Each time, deeper tire tracks. Each time, more grass is torn up. Each time, she walked away like she owned the land. But the worst part? On the 4th violation, I'd staked a small, polite sign into the ground. Please do not drive on the lawn. Next morning, the camera caught her. She pulled over, stepped out, yanked the sign from the ground with one hand, and threw it into a public trash bin a block away. Her Mercedes purred back across my turf like it was some damn victory lap. That afternoon, I opened my mailbox and nearly choked a formal HOA violation notice. The condition of the lawn deteriorated, inconsistent with Pine Hill aesthetic standards. Weekly fines, $50 until corrected. And whose signature was scrawled across the bottom in bold blue ink, Martha Covington. I stared at that piece of paper until my knuckles turned white. The same woman destroying my lawn was now fining me for not keeping it presentable. That was when I stopped being surprised. That was when I started getting mad. I crumpled the notice in my fist and sat on my porch steps as the sun sank low. My eyes drifted across the torn-up turf, my once lush green tribute to my father, now shredded like confetti. And something clicked inside me. No one has the right to destroy what we care about, I whispered. I went inside, grabbed the thick, 78-page HOA rulebook she had so graciously gifted me during our first meeting and started reading it like it was a war manual. Highlighting, annotating, digging. It was nearly midnight when I found it. Section 4.3.2, Homeowner Property Rights. And that's when Michael knocked on my door again, 2 beers in hand and a look in his eye that said he already knew. Come out back, he said, cracking a cold one open. I've got an idea. We sat under the dim glow of my patio lights, and he laid it out, a plan so simple, so brilliant, I nearly laughed. Have you ever heard of landscape obstacles? He asked with a grin. Decorative boulders, legal, heavy, real damn inconvenient for luxury sedans. Turns out, Section 5.9 of the HOA guidelines allowed for natural landscaping elements, as long as they were aesthetically appropriate. We spent the weekend scouring local garden centers until we found them, 3 beautiful, heavy stones, gray with blue flecks, each about the size of a doghouse. We placed them strategically along the corner of my lawn, perfectly spaced, perfectly aligned, and perfectly in compliance. They weren't just rocks, they were a message. We embedded them deep, stable enough to stop a car, but still decorative. I took photos, measurements, and logged every inch. Documented everything, dates, times, distances from property lines, you name it. Why so paranoid? I asked Michael as he triple-checked the placement. He looked at me, eyes hard. Because Martha will come for you. Not directly, not with a fight. She'll use loopholes, obscure bylaws, and technicalities. So document everything. At the time, I thought he was overreacting. I had no idea just how right he was, because the rocks weren't even cold in the soil when the real battle began. By Monday morning, the rocks were already getting attention. Neighbors slowed their walks. Some nodded in approval. One even said, "Smart move, son." But then came the real test. Martha's morning cruise. At 7:42 a.m., her Mercedes gilded, slowly past my house. She didn't stop, just stared. Her lips pursed so tight they nearly vanished. I watched the footage later that night, frame by frame, and I swear if looks could ignite, my lawn would have gone up in flames. But she didn't say anything. Not yet, because Martha Covington never attacks in broad daylight. A week passed. Just when I started to think maybe, the rocks had worked, something shifted. One of the boulders had moved. Not much, just a few inches. But the drag marks were there, fresh. And across the granite face? Long, deliberate scratches. I reviewed the footage, and there it was. 12 a.m. A landscaping truck rolls up, Green Dreams Landscaping. Martha steps out in heels and a smug smile, waving to the workers like she's royalty blessing her servants. She's loud enough for the audio mics to catch. We're doing complimentary maintenance. All areas need even trimming. That one's in the way. Just shift it a bit. The workers look confused. One hesitates. But Martha's got that tone, the kind that dares you to question her. So the guy nods and moves the stone. Not out of place. Just enough to make it non-compliant. Michael was livid. She's weaponizing landscapers now, he growled. Classic HOA warfare. Do it under the guise of community service so it looks innocent. That night, we installed motion-activated floodlights, top of the line, waterproof, glare-tuned for license plates. We mounted them low, hidden in flower beds and planters. The yard lit up like a prison yard during a breakout test. Michael chuckled. You're officially on her watch list now, he said, patting my shoulder. And trust me, she keeps a list. He wasn't joking. Just 3 days later, Martha called an emergency HOA board meeting. The agenda? A proposed amendment to landscaping regulations, limiting the size and placement of decorative features. Her reasoning? Community safety. We must ensure no resident installs hazardous objects that could obstruct maintenance or pose a danger to children. I showed up to that meeting early, binder in hand, video cued, every receipt ready. When it was my turn, I stood, flipped open the binder, and calmly said, "Before we change the rules, I'd like to show you what prompted this amendment." Then I played the footage. 8 clips, 8 crossings. One sign being ripped from the dirt, and a stone being dragged by an unsuspecting worker at 4 in the morning. You could hear the murmurs ripple through the room like waves. Amanda Jennings, a soft-spoken lawyer on the board, raised her hand. I motioned to table this amendment until further review. Vote passed. Martha sat stone-faced. Her proposal? Dead. At least for now. But when I left the meeting hall, she brushed past me in the corridor. Her shoulder slammed into mine, deliberate. She whispered just loud enough, "You think you've won something, Ryan? You don't belong here, and we have ways of dealing with people like you." That night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. In this neighborhood, we don't tolerate people who don't play by the rules. No name, no signature, just the sound of the gloves coming off. I didn't sleep that night, and when I woke up the next morning, the rocks were gone, all 3. The grass was mud. My cameras, somehow, had been tilted just out of frame, and standing dead center of the chaos, staked proudly into the dirt, an HOA sign. Area under repair, no trespassing, no repair order, no request, just bold-faced theft on my own front lawn. I stood there, fists clenched, surrounded by dirt and lies, and I realized she wasn't just driving across my lawn anymore. She was driving across every line that made this neighborhood feel like home. And now, it was time to push back. I didn't call her. I didn't scream. I didn't knock on Martha's perfect colonial door with the brass eagle knocker and demand justice. No, that's exactly what she wanted, a reaction she could twist into a threat or harassment. Instead, I did what a good engineer does when the system fails. I restructured it. I started by calling Amanda Jennings, the HOA board lawyer who had helped block Martha's ridiculous amendment. When I described the under-repair sign and the missing boulders, she went silent. "The HOA never issued a repair order for your property," she said quietly. "Ryan, be careful. They're watching all of us." That alone said everything. As I snapped photos of the trampled lawn and re-angled the cameras, Deborah's white Mercedes rolled by, like clockwork. Her window lowered just enough for her to flash me that syrupy sweet smile. "Oh my, your lawn looks terrible," she chirped. "You wouldn't want more fines, would you?" No rage, no yelling, just me, quietly documenting every word. Because this wasn't about rage anymore. This was war. And in war, the one with the better records usually wins. Over the next 72 hours, I didn't rest. I built a binder the size of a car battery, emails, photos, security footage, timeline logs, every incident, every infraction, every timestamp. A 3-inch thick compilation of Martha's hypocrisy and abuse. Michael called it the Karen Codex. I called it my shield. When I showed it to him, he nodded solemnly. You're doing what most people never do, outlasting her. But I've got one more idea. Something Martha will never see coming. He leaned in. You know those fancy drainage laws Florida has? High water tables, rain runoff, foundation preservation? I blinked. Wait, you're saying I could... He grinned. Legally install subsurface drainage under your lawn, with metal, heavy-duty, rigid pipes, totally code-compliant, completely invisible. And if someone happens to drive over them? He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. That night, I went full nerd. I dove into county codes, HOA bylaws, property regulations. Section 7.2.1 of the local ordinance was the jackpot. Homeowners may install subsurface drainage systems using appropriate materials to protect structural foundations from water intrusion. Bingo. The loophole wasn't even hidden. It was just overlooked, because no one ever reads these documents like an engineer, with a vendetta. I called Amanda and asked her to pre-verify the installation plan. She agreed, cautiously, and even signed off as a witness when I filed the design with the HOA oversight firm. It was happening. The contractor was an old-timer named Frank, the kind of guy who wore steel-toe boots even to Sunday brunch. When I explained the drainage needs, with subtle emphasis on the problem corner, he nodded slowly and said, let me guess, corner lot. HOA queen, drives a Benz. I smiled. He spat into the dirt. Seen this game before. He installed 3 10-foot lengths of stainless steel pipe just under the surface, rigid, weatherproof, unmovable. Real drainage infrastructure, real consequences if driven over. Then we planted new grass, laid down warning signs, subsurface drainage area, not suitable for vehicular traffic. Perfectly legal, subtly hilarious. Martha tried to block it, of course, claimed it was aesthetic pollution. Amanda shut her down with citations from the rule book, and then we waited. 3 days later, my security cam caught it. 19 a.m. Martha's Mercedes rounded the corner, paused at the edge of my lawn. She stared at the signs, then drove over it anyway. Hiss, thump, clank, the sound of karma. A clean flat. The footage was of the chef's kiss. She stormed out, heels sinking into my wet lawn, screaming about sabotage. I met her at the edge of the grass, calmly holding my phone, recording everything. You'll pay for this, Anderson? I'm calling the police. By all means, I replied. But do note, this is a permitted drainage installation. The warning signs are posted. You chose to drive on private property. She blinked, then narrowed her eyes. You think you're clever, but you have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I said with a smile, I know exactly who I'm dealing with, and my cameras record audio too. She looked like she swallowed a lemon, and that's when Officer Kevin Brown pulled up. Responding to Martha's emergency call, she ran to him like a damsel in distress. He booby-trapped his yard. This is sabotage, the officer turned to me. I handed over the paperwork. Drawings, HOA sign-offs, time-stamped photos, video proof. He reviewed it all, slowly, thoroughly, then turned back to her. Ma'am, I don't see any violation here. Mr. Anderson's system is compliant, and this is clearly marked private property. If you'd like to pursue civil litigation, that's your right. Martha turned purple. This isn't over, she hissed, limping back to her disabled car. I didn't say a word, because I knew the next play, and this time, I was holding the Queen's own rulebook against her. When someone like Martha Covington says, this isn't over, she doesn't mean it as a threat. She means it as a promise. 2 days after her Mercedes got a taste of steel, a new message showed up in my mailbox. This one wasn't a fine. It wasn't from the HOA. It was from her attorney, a formal letter claiming that I had violated historic access rights by blocking an established community pathway across my lawn. The language was slippery, full of vague legalese. But one phrase jumped out like a snake in the grass. Perpetual easement reserved for community use. I blinked. Wait, what? I tore through my home purchase documents, hundreds of pages, contracts, disclosures, inspection forms, and finally buried in Appendix C, size 8 font, at the bottom of the last page. There it was. Seller reserves. Perpetual access and transition rights along established pathways for community connectivity purposes. I sat back, heart pounding. She got me, not with fines, not with intimidation, but with a legal landmine, buried in the paperwork I'd signed during closing. And then it hit me. Martha was the listing agent on my house. She had orchestrated the entire sale, recommended the closing attorney, drafted the documents, and inserted this pathway clause like a Trojan horse. I'd been so focused on buying my dream home, I'd walked right into her trap. I called Amanda. She listened, silent, then said, "You're not the first." She connected me with a real estate attorney named Patricia Burke. No nonsense, sharp as a scalpel. Within 24 hours, Patricia showed, up at my door, briefcase in hand and fire in her eyes. She reviewed the clause, then closed the file. Legally unenforceable. Buried, vague, not explicitly disclosed. It's textbook manipulation. A judge would laugh it out of court. But it got worse. As Patricia dug deeper, she discovered the same clause in other homes across the neighborhood. All sold through Martha's real estate firm. All with the same closing process. All with sellers who just wanted to move quickly. It was a pattern. A machine. Martha was using the HOA to bully homeowners into selling, lowering their property value through targeted harassment and fines, then flipping their homes through shell companies linked to her firm, all using this hidden clause as leverage. She's not just petty, Patricia said. She's profiting. I wanted to go public, but Patricia held up a hand. Not yet. We need proof. That's when Jessica entered the picture. I got a message from a burner number. Meet me at Brewhouse Cafe, 8 a.m. Tell no one. I work for Martha. I showed up the next morning. Jessica was already there. Young, nervous, glancing over her shoulder every 2 minutes. She slid me a flash drive wrapped in a napkin. She's been doing this for years. HOA harassment, fake violations, buried clauses. She targets corner lots, elderly owners, divorcing couples, people who can't fight back. The drive had everything. Emails, spreadsheets, transaction logs, even plans to flip my home for a $30,000 profit once she forced me out. She calls it strategic turnover, Jessica whispered. But we all knew it was something darker. That night. I sat with Michael and Amanda in Michael's garage, a dozen files spread across the workbench like war maps. Michael leaned in. We've got to go bigger, not just legal, public. Let's light a fire she can't put out. So we started compiling stories, victims, paperwork, testimonies, anonymous emails, HOA records. We launched a private group online. Victims of Pine Hill, HOA, share your story. Dozens joined within days. Some were still in the neighborhood. Others had moved away, forced out. We planned a community meeting. Michael's backyard, no Martha allowed. Word spread quietly. Flyers slid into mailboxes. A few brave neighbors volunteered to speak. And just to raise the stakes, I sent a press. Tip to 2 local journalists. The headline, HOA president accused of using rules to seize homes. But Martha wasn't done yet. She called an emergency HOA inspection of my property. 5 inspectors, 2 HOA board members, 1 building inspector, personally hired by Martha. They came with clipboards and bad intentions. They cited me for a 1 millimeter hairline crack in my walkway, slightly uneven mulch distribution, a garden hose, visible too long after use, and my personally favorite, holiday lights stored improperly. I followed them silently, cameras rolling, but I wasn't scared, because at the front of my lawn, parked under the sun, was a news van. And the moment that building inspector finished his checklist, he turned to see a camera in his face. "Sir, can you confirm your relationship with Covington Realty?" He started, and then I pulled out audio recordings. Michael had attended their pre-inspection planning meeting under the guise of a concerned neighbor. We had it all. Find something, anything. I want him out by next quarter. That's what Robert, Martha's right-hand man, said on tape. And with that, the inspector refused to sign the report, but the HOA still fined me $5,000 due in 10 days. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just a lawn war anymore. This was a fight for every homeowner who had ever been cornered, conned, or crushed by people like Martha. And this time, we were bringing the whole neighborhood with us. They thought the $5,000 fine would break me, that I'd pack up, slink away, sell cheap, just like the others Martha had steamrolled before. What they didn't expect was that I wasn't standing alone anymore. The night after the bogus inspection, Michael knocked on my door with a USB drive and a wicked grin. "This," he said, "is what breaks her." Inside was a full internal audit. Amanda, now fully on board and done with playing nice, had dug through 2 years of HOA financial records. What she found was stunning: $30,000 in unclassified maintenance expenditures, duplicate invoices, for landscaping. Personal reimbursements tied to Martha's community outreach trips, one of which included a 4-night stay at a beach resort with her husband. "She's been bleeding the HOA dry," Amanda said, handing me a printed report. "Time to show the world." We moved fast. Michael hosted a backyard meeting that Friday night. No flyers, just whispered invitations, private texts, quiet knocks on trusted doors. By 6:30 p.m., over 40 residents had gathered. Lawn chairs, folding tables, even a few coolers of soda. And then the real surprise rolled in. 2 news vans. Local media. Cameras live. Martha showed up late, red-faced and barking about unauthorized gatherings. She claimed we were violating HOA bylaws by meeting without board approval. But this time, nobody backed down. I stood in front of the crowd, binder in one hand, Jessica's flash drive in the other, and said clearly, "This isn't just about one lawn. It's about every home she's tried to take, every family she's driven out, and every dollar she's siphoned while pretending to protect neighborhood standards." Then I clicked play. On a makeshift projector screen, we showed emails, spreadsheets, photos, internal memos, all from Jessica's flash drive, exposing Martha's years of strategic property devaluation, fake fines, and LLCs linked to her husband that purchased distressed homes, then flipped them. People gasped, cried, shouted. They remembered. The elderly couple was fined into foreclosure. The veteran said he couldn't fly his flag. The family was forced to repaint their home 3 times because the shade was wrong. And then Robert cracked, right there in front of the crowd. "I didn't know about the flipping," he muttered, shaking his head. "She said we were just enforcing rules. She said if I helped, she'd support me for city council." Suddenly, Martha was standing alone. And then Officer Kevin Brown showed up. Again. Not because of Martha this time. Because of us. Multiple residents had filed formal complaints, and Amanda had submitted a request for investigation into HOA financial misconduct. "We've received credible reports of fraud, harassment, and property manipulation," Officer Brown said to Martha. "I'll need you to provide a formal statement." She tried to leave. He blocked her path. Now. Her face twisted, her voice cracked, and for the first time since I met her, Martha Covington lost control. I built this neighborhood, she shouted. None of you ungrateful people would have done anything without me? Phones were out, recording, flashing. Martha had finally revealed what we'd all known deep down. She didn't protect this neighborhood. She ruled it. The vote came swiftly. An emergency motion of no confidence was called. Martha was removed from her HOA position on the spot. Robert abstained, slinking into the shadows. Amanda stepped in as interim president. First order of business: all fines levied against Mr. Anderson are nullified effective immediately. A reimbursement for damages is under review. The crowd cheered, but I didn't celebrate yet, because I knew Martha had one more move, and I was right. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Security alert. Motion detected. Front yard. I pulled up the camera feed. 3 masked figures, crouched low, spray cans in hand. They barely got the word HOA hater onto my car before my floodlights hit, and they scattered into the dark. Police report filed. No arrests, no clear faces, just shadows and paint fumes, but it wasn't just vandalism. It was a message. And the next morning, Amanda called. They're planning a full-blown inspection next week. Martha may be gone, but her loyalists aren't. Robert's rallying the rest. They want you out, permanently. She paused. She's telling people she'll force a distress sale, that you'll break eventually. I looked outside at the paint-streaked driveway, at the newly regrown grass, at the cameras, the pipes, the signs. Then I looked at my neighbor, Michael, standing in my yard with a hammer and a plan. You can't give up now, he said. Because if you fall, we all fall. She moves to the city council next. This is bigger than just you. And he was right. This wasn't just about my lawn anymore. This was about taking back a community. They came like they were raiding a compound. 5 people, clipboards, measuring wheels, cameras, 1 private building inspector, handpicked by Robert. And of course, Robert himself was leading the charge. Flanked by the last few HOA loyalists still clinging to Martha's legacy, like rats on a sinking ship. At 9 a.m. sharp, they stepped onto my lawn with an air of authority, not to inspect, but to condemn. I was ready. Every camera on my property was live. Michael stood beside me, arms crossed. Amanda, clipboard in hand, ready to check every regulation they tried to twist. And just like we planned, the media showed up 5 minutes later. 2 local news crews, 1 investigative reporter, 1 drone in the air, and 40 of my neighbors watched silently from the sidewalk. It wasn't an inspection. It was a showdown. They went hard. This trim is faded. This gutter is loose by ½ an inch. This sidewalk crack could be a safety hazard. This decorative light isn't HOA approved. This hose wasn't coiled to regulation standards. Each violation was minor, absurd, really, but they piled them up like kindling. At the end of it all, the inspector looked uncomfortable, sweating, cameras in his face, reporters asking pointed questions. Sir, can you confirm your independence from Covington Realty? He mumbled, fumbled, and then I made my move. Michael stepped forward and handed him a USB drive. Before you sign anything, I said, loud enough for the entire block to hear, you should hear what Robert told you to find. The crowd fell silent. I tapped my phone and played the audio. Find something, anything. I want him out by next quarter. I don't care if it's a loose shutter or his mailbox isn't shiny enough. Robert's voice, clear as day. The inspector's face drained. He stammered, then turned to Amanda. I can't sign this report. This process is compromised. Robert exploded. This is all a setup. He's manipulating everyone. Michael stepped in. You mean like you manipulated us into moving our fences, repainting our homes, and selling at a loss while Martha flipped them for profit? Robert frozen. The crowd murmured, then erupted. And then came the real blow. Amanda took the mic. Yes, someone had brought a portable PA system and dropped the bombshell. In the past 2 years, over $30,000 in HOA funds are unaccounted for. The violations, the fines, the intimidation, All of it built to feed a scheme led by a president who's now under formal investigation for fraud. She pulled out printed spreadsheets, financial inconsistencies, misused funds, unapproved, transactions to shell companies. Then she looked straight at the camera. And we have reason to believe Robert Blake knowingly participated in these activities. Robert turned pale. Officer Kevin Brown, who had just arrived, didn't wait. "Mr. Blake, I'll need you to come with me and provide a statement downtown." But the moment everyone would remember was still to come. As Robert was led away, someone from the crowd shouted, "Where's Martha now?" And then, as if scripted by fate, a car pulled up. White Mercedes, trunk stuffed with boxes, Martha Covington. She stepped out, expression tight, like she still had. "One last move, you're all fools," she spat. "I gave this neighborhood class, order. Without me, you're just another failing Florida subdivision." She was met with silence. The laughter, phones raised, flashes popped. She turned to leave. But Officer Brown held up a hand. "Not so. Fast, Mrs. Covington. We've got multiple fraud complaints to discuss. And I've been informed your real estate license is now under review." Martha tried to walk past him. "I'm done with this place. Then you won't mind answering a few questions on the record." That night, the HOA held an emergency. Vote. Amanda was confirmed as permanent president. The bylaws were overhauled. Every predatory rule Martha and Robert had enforced was struck down. As for me, the $5,000 fine was erased. My drainage system, officially endorsed. And my lawn, perfect. We threw a barbecue. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years showed up, and on my lawn we posted a wooden sign. "This lawn may or may not contain drainage spikes. HOA approved." But I wasn't done yet. Because earlier that afternoon, I received one last message. A letter from Deborah, Martha Covington's new HOA, on the other side of town. Apparently, she'd already begun inserting herself into another community's board. Amanda raised an eyebrow when I told her. "Should we warn them?" she asked. I smiled. Maybe. Or maybe they'll figure it out the hard way and plant their spikes faster than we did. 1 week after that historic vote, I sat alone on my porch, iced tea in hand, watching the sun turn my lawn golden. A lawn I once thought would be the start of a dream, and nearly became its grave. But not anymore. No more weekly violation, letters, no more sneaky camera pivots, no more Mercedes tires slicing across my grass like it was nobody's land. Only silence now, and gratitude. Amanda was officially elected as the new HOA president. Every meeting is now recorded and made public. Every new rule must be voted on by residents. No more verbal directives from Martha and her cronies. Michael? He started planting flowers in front of his house. First time in 5 years living at Pine Hill Meadows. Robert moved out, quietly, before the community could push for full expulsion. And Martha? The last time I saw her white car, it was rolling out of the neighborhood, its trunk packed with boxes. A woman who once sat at the head of every meeting. Now just another person the community she manipulated turned its back on. That evening, we held a barbecue right on my front lawn, the same lawn that was once a battlefield, now a place of laughter, kids playing, and neighbors raising their glasses to freedom. Amanda showed up late, holding a flyer. "She's running again in another neighborhood," she said, placing the sheet on the table. I looked at Martha's photo printed on it. Same smile, same polished slogan. "Bringing standards. Back to the community," I chuckled. "Maybe this time they'll plant spikes before the grass grows." I kept a few steel pipes buried under the lawn, not out of spite, but as a reminder that what we love must be defended with resolve and clarity. Because the truth is, not everyone drives across your lawn, only the ones who believe they're entitled to. My name is Ryan Anderson, the man whose lawn got trampled, and who turned it into a lesson a HOA Karen won't soon forget. If you've ever been threatened, bullied, or harassed by people hiding behind community rules to control others, remember this: grass grows back. But freedom, once taken, must be reclaimed with your own two hands. The lawn is green again, but something deeper has changed. Not the soil, but how this community looks at one another. They once bowed to rules. Now they rise for the truth. They once stayed silent in the face of injustice. Now they stand for each other. I left a piece of pipe buried beneath the soft earth, not to warn, but to remind. The line between order and oppression, between rules and abuse, always starts with the smallest things. And if someone, someday, thinks they can drive across your lawn, show them this. Some grass doesn't just grow. It learns how to defend itself.